All right, so welcome to the 2021 TLFL Media Day, or should I say Media Night. I'm joined by uh, our two representatives. We have Mike. He is from the West Division, and then we have Jacob Morton. He's from the East Division. Both you guys won your divisions in the regular season. You each got first round buys, and you took care of business in the semifinals. And you guys made it to the championship game, the fifth ever championship game. And just congrats. And we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna start with Mike. Mike, this league's been going on for 5 years, and you have now made the championship 3 times out of those 5 years. Does it feel any different than past years?
I will say I've only been playing this league for 4 years, so third championship in the 4 years I've been playing. But yes, three times been to the championship. I think this is the first year where I would say, obviously, my first year when I made the championship, I had probably my most stacked team. This year, not so much, but I think there's just a different confidence going in because I think this is the first time where I think my team has been able to play up to standard, if not better than standard. So, I think going back to drafting, I think I drafted really well. And I think, the back end guys who I took a flyer on ended up coming out and, playing up to the standard that I thought they could. I think, but ultimately back to your question, I think this year doesn't feel much different. I think we, been to the championship twice. I split it. I think I know what to expect. You can't get over emotional about one game, but I don't know. I think having a peace of mind, is good to have. I think making the championship's fun, but ultimately got to win the thing.
Well said. All right, now going to Mort. Mort, your team's a little different. So we all know you started off the season 5-1. You're sitting well above everyone else. And then you lost 4 straight. And then you ended up finishing the year 8-6. With all due respect, barely won the division. How important has consistency been for you guys this year?
Oh man, well, I mean, I think it goes back to the draft. I drafted Raheem Mostert as my running back. That really hurt me. Honestly, and drafting Julio as well. Him not getting a lot of play time, and AJ Green. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Number 11 on the Titans.
Brown.
AJ Brown, yeah, but he took over. He got wide receiver 1. I think Julio had maybe 2 good games. Devontae having COVID. Stuff like that, like injuries. I mean, Lenny didn't really kick up until the end of the season. Injuries, people getting hurt. So, it's kind of been like some of these games are have me on edge, being 5-1 and then dropping to 5-5 eventually is just for me that was crazy. Being in the top spot for a minute and then seeing that I could get back into playoffs like Devontae and Joe Mixon and Josh Allen been tearing it up. But yeah, I guess it's different. I think Mike definitely has a stronger, more consistent team. That being said, don't count out the players, but when you have people who are producing like that, I mean, Kittle dropping 3 points, that hurts. It hurts, and you got people selling games, and fantasy makes you become a football fan as a whole, and not really sticking to one team.
Well said. That's well said. I do agree. I jump to our next question, going to Mike. I don't know if you probably know, but if you win the championship this year, you would lead all of the teams or all of the players in championships won with 2. What would that mean to you and your team?
I think I think before I address this, I just want to jump back onto a comment Mort said. I think Mort brings up a good point that, the highs and lows of fantasy football, and it's hard to, you know, really like gauge how good your team is because it's on a week to week basis. I do say, like, even though I do have the stronger team, I did get my ass kicked by Mort in that week 11 where I put up a whopping 45 points. I'm pretty sure he beat me by nearly 90 points. So, like I said, anything can happen on any given Sunday, so that's the crazy thing about it. But I think what was your original question? Like, what would that mean if I
what would it mean to win the championship this year and have the most titles in our league?
I think I think it would mean a lot just because there's been some frustrating years where I thought on paper I had the best team, and as we know in fantasy football, not all the time the best team is going to win it, especially when it comes down to one weekend. I always harp back to my first championship where I probably had the best team on paper. I drafted incredibly well. Every one of my guys hit, but I just didn't end up winning. I think I think it would. I would say this is probably the first time I really planned out how I was going to draft. I got mostly every guy that I wanted in the draft, and I think it gives me some confidence into a certain strategy, what I want to do, in years going forward, regardless if I win this championship or not. But to win 2 championships in 3 years, especially after the year I had where I was the worst team by far, and I was plagued with injuries last year, in a year that I had a lot of confidence in my guys. I think it would be very satisfying, to say the least, winning a championship and having 2 under my belt in the span of 4 years playing. I think, especially in a crazy year like this where literally anything was going on, I think it was actually quite ironic that almost every year in fantasy football there's always a team that sneaks in and then goes crazy who wasn't particularly hot during the entire season. I think it's kind of I think it's kind of ironic that I think deservedly the 2 best teams in the league aren't in the championship. Mort was the best team arguably through the first 6 games, and then he turned it up at the end of the year even though he had a dry spell, and I had a rough start to the year, but I dropped a few games here and there, but ultimately I closed out the season strong. So I think in a crazy year like this, I think it's nice to see that I would say the 2 best teams in the league really do match up in the championship.
Nice. And Mort, going to you, for you, this is your first trip to the championship game. It's your second playoff appearance in 2 years. What would it mean to you if you were able to win the championship game in your second year in the league?
I mean, it's bragging rights, I'm just playing. No, it'd be a real honor, just being a part of it. Kind of just like, I've never really belonged to like a fantasy group. How you guys have been running for 3 years prior to me joining. For me, it's just cool to talk, just football, look at the games, how like other people, and seeing the constant back and forth and, kind of how the camaraderie of it, but also, you got people at each other's neck and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be a part of the league, and it'd be a cool honor to be like, oh yeah, I won, just to have that under my belt. But honestly, it's an honor just being here and sharing the field with Mike, former champ, man. Doesn't get any better than that. You got a young buck, and then you got the experienced old head in there. Not that Mike's old, but you know what I mean. Like he's been in it for a while. He knows what he's doing. Honestly, it's tough, man. Fantasy football is tough, but it's all about finishing strong and finishing throughout the season. Like 17 games, man, those, 15 of those games are really what counts for, us to be making the playoffs. So, consistency and drafting well, obviously I have to do a lot more research because, even last year, I think I had like Patrick Mahomes and like my running back, duo was just terrible, so honestly, after this year, buckle down in the next draft, and I'm excited to looking forward to this game. Oh, it's pretty crazy. It got me excited.
Yep. As you should. You guys have both earned the opportunity to be here All right, Mike, going back to you. Um, I mean, earlier on in the year, when you kind of ascended to kind of the top of the league, there's always talks in the back of your head saying like, oh, like, how good could this team be? We're good enough to win a championship. We're good enough to be, one of the most high scoring teams in the league. How have you been able to kind of handle talks like that while trying to stay focused, and taking it week by week? Because, when you're 6-2, you got 4 more games left in the season. You drop 4 of those, you miss the playoffs. So how have you kind of been able to kind of cancel out all the noise and, stay focused?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was a little busier this year on the trade deadline than I typically am. I usually sit tight on the trade deadline unless something major comes along. But I knew I had some issues I needed to address. The good thing was that I knew I was a move or two away from solidifying a good spot. Ultimately, I think, especially with all the injuries and COVID, having a deep team was ultimately what got me there, because in the past I've usually gone pretty shallow where I want a strong player at every position, but not necessarily a bench. And I think this year having a bench, especially with my later picks turning out, such as like, Zach Ertz was my last pick I had, and he doesn't start for me, but he's a good backup tight end. Antonio Brown and Pittman, while they were there, were solid backups. And then at the end of the year, I think it was just more about ensuring my main guys, getting insurance guys, so I don't miss out on those. But I think what ultimately made, what helped me is that I didn't overthink a lot of things. There'd be weeks where guys wouldn't perform and guys on my bench would go off, and I would, start to double think, what exactly, like should I start this person or that person? But I think ultimately, riding with the guys that got you there really pans out. And, I don't look too much into the analytics or, certain opportunities at this point or that point, but, I'm going to ride with the guys who brought me there. There'd be weeks where it said, Zeke or CD, maybe you look for a better option. Matthew Stafford doesn't have a great option. Maybe you go with something else, or even the Cowboys defense. But, ultimately, dance with the girl who brought you there. And, I would say my starting lineup has done great, and I still think, there's a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to it. I still honestly don't think my team has had one week where we put everything together. I think there have been good weeks, but, there's always a few guys who, and I'm poking at Kyle Pitts because he's been a little bit of the weak point on my team, which I mean isn't, it's not a bad problem to have when you have the number 5 rated tight end and he's the weak point on your team. But yeah, definitely not overthinking it. Ultimately it's going to be your eye test. Go with your gut instinct. Dance with the girl who brought you there. I think that's been a good reason of how I've been able to stay consistent and not overthink too much things when it comes to who to start, who not to start.
Nice. All right, Mort, going to you. All year long, at least, like in terms of like the small community of our league, I know you were 5-1 top of the league for a while, and then kind of once you slid down, there's talks of like, oh, we like teams like Dylan, we like teams like Frank, Nate, Yachten, obviously Mike, Josh was heating up at the end. These are guys that we think are have enough to win the championship. And, you kind of got lost in that conversation. So, I mean, do you still think you need, to prove something in this championship game?
I mean, not just like to prove it, but like, I think I'm a playoff contender. I think I belong there. I think, there's been considerable games where my team has showed out. And some of them have come in, close. And then there's, everybody's got those games where I think Mike had mentioned, he put up like 45 points or something like that. Like that's going to happen. It's not always guaranteed, that Devontae is going to score 3 touchdowns and, grabs 100 yards. You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess it's more of you need to have like a knowledge of football. And like, you need to know how teams play against each other and, what their strength is and really kind of like dive in and do some research, get your hands dirty a little bit. But yeah, no, I think getting lost in the conversation, I was still on top of my division. I think I slipped like maybe once, where it was like, someone may have like been tied for first. But I think I edged it out in the end. Came out on top, which I'm proud of. I think the reason why, I wasn't really in that talk of, everybody's because of my receiving core. I only got Devontae, and, I don't really have a backup, flex, or, I think I have like a couple players on the bench, but, they're not putting up, 10, 15, 20 points a game. So, it's just, I missed the trade deadline. I could have made some trades. But I didn't think, that Julio wouldn't get that much looks, or, Lenny wouldn't, be running the ball how he had been as of late. I think he dropped like close to like 40 points in a game or something like that, pretty close to. But I will say this, with fantasy, you're not always going to get, the players that you want when you draft. But so I'm in another league as well. And I just made the championship in that one too. So it's kind of like I have a knowledge of like something, but there is guys like, you and Mike and a couple other players, people in our league who like draft, very smart and calculated. Him picking up CD, like CD's been going off this year, stuff like that. And it always, pays to have a good, strong three, like your QB, your running back, and like, obviously either a flex or a receiver.
And more, just a comment. I mean, I would argue that you might have one of the best QB running back receiver duo or trios in the league, and it's not even close. I mean, in some cases, I think they account for almost half your points, maybe 60 to 70% of your points. So, last individual questions, and I got three questions for both of you to answer. So Mike, I'll go to you. When you look at Mort's team and his resume this season, is there anything that jumps out off the paper that concerns you?
I think I think something that because I don't like to use this word looking ahead, but a lot of the season I was looking ahead, and I will say like I had my eye on Mort's team for a lot of this year because his team they slump, but I mean I was just saying like I was keeping my eye on Mort's team for a lot of this year, knowing that the winner on that other side was going to get a bye, regardless of how of the record, they're going to have a distinct advantage, especially with the 10-point spot, but I think, I think something that jumps out about me is, or to more, or, for me about Mort's team is, any given weekend his team can put it together. Cause I mean, like, I will say like, he has a couple guys who don't really, who have been black holes for him this year, but he's got four guys who can any given weekend get you 2+ touchdowns a week. We just saw Josh Allen put up 30. We just saw Devontae have 30. Mixon has been insanely good this year. I think that was one of the best draft picks of the year, considering that I'm pretty sure he got Mixon in the second or third round or something like that. And he's gotten incredible value for that. Just put, that firepower that he has, is, you can't look away from that. I think I have a good consistent team, but I think Mort's ceiling is a lot higher. So, you just hope and pray that week his team doesn't put up 150 points on you. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to, get around. And, he's got really good matchups this week, so, I think it's going to be a fun one, like I still can't get over the fact that I lost by nearly 100 points to him in week 11. So, this is a get back game, obviously we had a lot of guys on bye, but I don't use that as an excuse. You're as good as the team that you trot out every single week. So, his team has absolute firepower. It's been, like he said, the consistency. His team struggled with it a little bit middle of the season, but you're seeing what his team really could do when you put it all together. So, it's not going to be an easy match. It's going to be a heavyweight heavyweight fight. It's probably going to go to the end. I don't expect this to be a blowout by any means. So, that's that's probably what I've been keeping an eye on.
And Mort, I'll kind of pose the same question to you. When you look at Mike's team and when you look at, some of the players he has, is there anyone that, kind of catches your eye, someone you got to, take a second peek at? Or
I mean, honestly, his big three, like I think our head to head, like, I think the picture you put up on the Instagram account, like, that says, for itself, it's like, okay, I kind of have to rethink my strategy. I got to look at like, what defense am I going to play? Who am I going to play at my flex? Who can get me some more points? Stuff like that. And I'm looking ahead, like, I'm not trying to take like my eye off Mike's team at all, but I've been like looking, lately I've been kind of out of it. I've been dealing with family death and stuff like that. So, I'm like, I got to, even right now, I got to go back, in the app and, check his team out. Because I'm not all that like too familiar with everybody on the team. But, for the most part, I have to really play my cards right. Like he was saying, my team would struggle, middle, almost the end of the season. But, there's those games, where Devontae will just hit or Josh Allen will just hit. Like, I mean, he struggled against the Patriots the first time, the first time around, he struggled really hard, but obviously, going through the weeks and you make adjustments and all that good stuff, you kind of hold out that hope that someone's going to do well, maybe wear like a lucky jersey or something like that. But for the most part, I got to be careful with how, I arrange my my lineup around Mike's team.
Yeah. And, obviously, Mort, we're sorry to hear about, your family. Wish you the best. But moving on to kind of some questions posed for both of you. Arguably, I mean, this matchup right here features two of the best fantasy wide receivers in the game. Obviously, Mort with Devontae Adams and Mike with Cooper Kupp. Probably two of the best receivers that have had pretty good years, solid years. Devontae's been kind of heating it up as of late, and Cooper Kupp's obviously been phenomenal throughout the entire year. What are some areas that you think you guys need to improve, or at least what are some positions that you guys need to improve in order to maybe get some more points and kind of gain a little bit of an advantage on each other's game? I'll kind of go with Mike first.
Yeah, I think like we've been saying, our teams match up pretty well. I think it's pretty even across the board in terms of certain positions. I think it's kind of funny. The first 4 weeks, I never did this, but I was actually thinking about proposing Cooper Kupp for Devontae Adams because Devontae had a really slow start, and I wasn't having Cooper Kupp 2 years. I love my Cooper Kupp, but if I could get a big shark like Devontae for Cooper Kupp, I was hoping on that, and I wasn't sure whether Cooper Kupp would sustain it. Obviously, he has, so it's worked out. I think it's worked out for both of us. Granted, we definitely the two top receivers by a long shot in the league, so I think it's worked out perfectly for both of us. But, I think the one spot where there is a drop off from me is the tight end spot, which I think Kittle had a slow start in the middle of the season, but he's looking like arguably chasing for tight end one next year. I got a young guy in Kyle Pitts, someone who I believe in, not necessarily the offense, but who I believe in. I think I think he's going to need to step up. He's only showed out for 1 week for me this entire year, and I've been able to slide past without much contribute, without much effort. And I'm really looking to see if he can, step up and match, what Kittle does, because I am concerned about Kittle. Kittle is basically a wide receiver playing tight end. Same with Pitts. I think Kittle is something that Pitts can be eventually, but in the offense that he's in, a couple of drops here and there, he's had a hard time. So as I've been lucky enough to get away with Pitts not having great weeks and still winning because the other guys have stepped up, so now it's now it's championship week. Guys got to show up, so I'm looking for every little point that I can get. Luckily, I got, my running backs are pretty solid. My wide receivers are solid, but, I'm still waiting for that big, 20+ game from Kyle Pitts. And, can I get that this week, especially in a week that favors, Kittle going against the Texans. So, that's probably the one thing I'm keeping an eye on, because I think across the board, like you said, we have a pretty, we match up pretty evenly across the board. I'd say that's probably the one drop off. And, can I get enough out of him to survive this week?
Yeah. All right, Mort, I'll pose you the same question. Do you think there's a position on your team that needs to step up?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I think, my secondary running back definitely. Like he needs to step up a lot. And Daquan's getting more of the looks and stuff like that. I kind of got, it's unfortunate Lenny's out, man. Like, nothing I can do about that. But, you take it to the chin. Also, my flex, I need to rearrange stuff. I think it's tough to put my finger on it, but definitely my two biggest areas of issue. Also my kicker. I mean, I think Harrison Butker was out because of COVID. He's an average like 10 points a game player. I think he like a crazy. Him and McManus were like going off, but I think Harrison Butker had a better game one week. And it kind of killed me, like I lost, because of it. There's been, like I said, there's a couple of those games where it's like a couple points and, you sit someone or you're not paying attention. Fantasy football is all about being attentive looking at all the games and every week who's playing, who, I got to look at other teams and stuff like that. It's really like you got to keep an eye on everybody because it's anybody's game.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at each other's rosters, again, a question for both of you. Other than kind of the big names, the Josh Allens, the Joe Mixons, the Ezekiel Elliott's, the Cooper Kupps, what's one player that you are most concerned about that hasn't really gotten the spotlight that some of these other big names have gotten on, respectively each other's teams? I'll start with you, Mike.
So you're asking the players on my team?
No, on Jacob's team. Is there anyone that, like, other than Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon, Josh Allen, anyone else that you're concerned about, like, even like aside from Kittle?
I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones is an interesting player because I do think, he's going to be actually he's definitely a player who's been on my radar for a couple of years. I think next year it'll probably be his breakout year, but the problem about him is that he's one 60-yard bomb away from wrecking a week. He's feast or famine. I think, Jacob can attest to this. He can get you 15 any given week, and then he can get you 3. So he's a big X factor. I do think that does give me a little concern. I think another thing is, having had Julio Jones on my championship team in 2019, it doesn't matter how slow of a start he has. He's just too talented to where, any week he can put it together. And I know he's had a really, really rough year, but when you least expect it, Julio Jones can get you 2 tutties and 100 yards with 6 receptions. So, that's, and like I said, Jacob's a very streaky team, and can you avoid the weeks where he puts it all together? I think it's safe to say we know what we're going to get from Mixon. What we're going to get from Mixon, Allen, and Devontae, the big 3. I think Kittle's a little more of an X factor, but he's been heating up. So you can't really, I wouldn't say he's a streaky player anymore. He's probably solidified, himself as to, have good weeks. But definitely keep an eye on those. I think also another interesting development that's been happening is, with Jimmy G out, how much is Trey Lance going to affect, George Kittle's touches? Like we said, he might get 2 or 3 catches with Trey Lance in there, or Trey Lance might just force feed him for 10 receptions. So, it's avoiding, there's nothing you can do about it, but, it's just something to really keep an eye on. So, yeah, that I would say about that.
And Mort, I'll pose the same question to you. Is there anyone that kind of Is there anyone that kind of, you see on Mike's team other than, the big names, Cooper Kupp, Ezekiel Elliott, Matthew Stafford, CeeDee Lamb, anyone else that kind of, anyone that like you're worried about?
Can you give me a little refresher on his team?
Yeah, for sure. I got you. So his running backs are, at least this week, his running backs are Ezekiel Elliott, Darrell Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp at wide receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Sony Michel at flex, Niners defense, and then Matt Gay at kicker.
The Niners defense and Sony Michel for sure, because Michel just dropped like 20 points, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams have been heating up. They're fighting for a playoff spot, which is, I mean, they're not fighting, but you know what I mean? They want to keep that, position up in there, kind of maintain that dominance over the NFC West. So, I feel like Cooper Kupp and, it's going to be tough with, Michelle sharing the carries. You never know with him. He could get 6 points or he could get you 15 plus. It's really a toss up, whether, is Henderson still rushing?
He's out. He's out now.
He's injured.
See, that's also a big factor because, now Michelle's going to be getting the ball a lot more. But, I think the Niners defense playing Houston will be huge, even though I think the Niners defense has a better defense than the Chargers, in the sense of, they got pretty much a comeback player of the year. They got an all-pro linebacking core pretty much. Their defensive line is going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a little bit too much to handle for the Texans. So, I think we're going to see about, 12 to 18 points from the Niners defense approximately. Kyle Pitts, you never know, man. You never know. He could get a huge game or, he could get a little bit of points. But, I think it's tough for the Falcons to get their traction going. Other than that, no, I think his big hitters, are the guys that you listed off, and those are like, the main key, I think to his success.
Yeah. All right, guys, we only have 6 minutes left, and my final question and kind of my final question for both of you is kind of just any final thoughts on the year, and you have any final messages for anyone out there watching? Mike, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, I think another thing I just want to throw out there was, looking ahead is a smart thing. I grabbed the Niners defense 3 weeks ago with the lookout that Dallas was playing Arizona. Even though Dallas's defense is defense number one, Arizona's got too much firepower. I knew that wasn't going to be a great matchup heading into the championship week if I got there. I think picking up San Francisco, like I said, there's a lot of confidence on that defense going against a really bad Houston team, and I think it's going to drive Jacob a little crazy having to watch his Niners, knowing that he's going against that defense. So I think that's going to be fun, because I've been on the other side of that and it's not fun. Closing words, I'd probably say, look, I like the community we built. Obviously it's great to be back in the championship. You play for first place, but I think making it to the championship is a big deal. And I'm really happy that I'm able to face a good team and more. As much as I wanted to kick the shit out of Yachten, Yachten's team didn't even see me in this ship, so he'll have to wait for next year. But like I said, and I know I poke fun at Yachten a lot, but he talks a lot. So if me getting another shot to kick his ass would have been awesome. But like I said, hey man, it's the sequel. It's the second time we're matching up. We got our ass kicked in week 11. Still haven't forgotten about that one. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Regardless of the outcome. I think we're going to be able to look back and say our teams played to our standard. And it's going to be, regardless of this, me and Jacob will obviously be on the backside of the draft. So, it's going to be fun to try and find those gems that we did, this year, who can be our breakout guys when it's not the first 5 picks. So, I think having that been said, I think, we're going to have a good week. I think it's going to be a fun game and a lot of respect on both sides.
All right, Jacob. Question to you. We got 3 minutes, 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts on the year and any final points you want to say to all the viewers out there?
I'll keep it short and simple, man. I'm here for a reason. I feel like I belong here. I deserve this. It's been a long time coming, money's paying up. I just had a couple questions. So is it winner take all?
Winner gets, so basically second place gets their money back.
Oh, cool, cool.
And then what is it? And then the championship winner gets they get whatever 50 times 12 is.
Holy
or 50 times 11, something like that. Well, I'll send you guys the numbers later, but it's a lot of money. It's like more than $500.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot at stake here, but either way, win or lose, I'm going to be happy just to be here to be like, yeah, former, I was in the Super Bowl, former, contender up in there, but, like he said, we're going to be in the backside of the draft. So I think, I don't know, probably Mike and I can link up in later date and, kind of like, once OTAs and everything goes on and all stuff, we can get into it and be like, all right, so who are we getting this year? But no, it's been a pleasure.
We're trying to get a rematch next year.
Oh, yeah. I'm running it. Better guarantee.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of respect on both sides. Obviously it's just an honor to share the field, so hope you guys watch the games though, man. Like I think the group chat should be active for this, little final matchup. And it's only 1 week, right? This is just one
only
week.
1 week. It's only 1 week. Yep.
So it really comes down to this Sunday, like
yep.
Crazy up in here.
Yep. Well, before we kind of end, I just want to say thank you to both of you for joining me tonight, answering some questions, kind of giving the league a refresher. Congrats to both of you again, win or lose. You're part of an elite family, an elite group. No matter you win or lose. Obviously, the money's great, but being a part of a community is even better. So that's what we're all about here at the TLFL. We're competitive, but we're also a family. So congrats to both of you. I'm going to log off, and we'll see what happens Sunday.
Thank you.
All righty, thanks.
Row the boat, baby.